Welcome back to another daily video in the run up to Halloween. And boy is this a creepy one. You should know the drill by now, but if you haven't already done it, then hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. The Delphi Murders. On February 13th, 2007, Abigail Joyce Williams and Liberty Rose German were brutally murdered at the hands of an unknown assailant. Their bodies would later be discovered near the Monon High Bridge Trail, part of the Delphi Historic Trails in Delphi, Indiana. Later referred to as the Delphi Murders, the deaths of Abigail and Liberty shocked the nation, leading to countless social media posts, news coverage, and speculation as to who was responsible and why. The girls had decided to go out for the day and were dropped off just east of Hosier Heartland Highway by Kelsey German, Rose's older sister, at approximately 1:30 p.m, where they decided to walk across the wooded area of Monon High Bridge in Deer Creel Township. At 12:07 p.m, a seemingly innocent photograph was posted on German's social media showing the girls walking across the bridge. Unfortunately, this would be the last time anyone would see them alive. As shocking and disturbing as this was, the photograph would prove to be an important piece of evidence in the subsequent investigation that followed. When the girls didn't show up to meet German's father at the agreed time of 3:15 p.m, they were eventually reported missing at 5:30 p.m. Unfortunately, the parents' worst fears were realized when search and rescue teams found the bodies of both girls the next day, around half a mile from the abandoned bridge. For 5 years, the families had to endure the torture of receiving no clues, suspects, or arrests, sparking frustration and fear across the community, as police believed the murderer to be a local resident. Sketch artists produced images described by neighbors who saw someone in the area at the time, which unfortunately differed in profile. However, the most vital piece of evidence came in the form of a grainy video, recorded around the same time as Libby's social media post. A still image had been released to the public from the recording, showing a man walking behind the girls wearing a hat, jeans, and a dark blue jacket, known only as Bridge Guy. The suspicious character can be heard replying to Libby when she states, "There is no path," by saying "down the hill." The stalker would finally be revealed as Richard M. Allen, a local man who was eventually arrested and charged with the murders after a tip-off to law enforcement mentioned his name as a potential suspect. After many legal twists and turns, the trial began on October 18, 2024, where prosecutors stated that both girls had their throats cut, with Williams being found wearing German's clothing and Libby herself being found naked in the nearby area. An unspent .40 caliber bullet was also discovered between the bodies and was later linked to Allen's gun through the quality and quantity of marks, according to a police firearms examiner. It was also confirmed that Allen had confessed to the murders on numerous occasions whilst he was being held in prison. Those he told were his wife, his mother, family members, the prison warden, and the psychologist who treated him in prison, other prison employees, and other inmates, according to the prosecution. Richard Allen was found guilty in 2024 and sentenced to 130 years in prison. The image, video, and audio bites will forever haunt the families of the girls, who suffered unimaginable horrors at the hands of a sadistic maniac. May they rest in peace. The stone tape theory. Have you ever wondered what makes some places feel haunted while others do not? Why is there more paranormal activity in certain locations compared to others? And why do people from diverse backgrounds or different time periods often report similar experiences in the same place? This eerie sensation of being haunted by unseen forces may be explained by the stone tape theory, an intriguing and controversial hypothesis suggesting that emotional and traumatic human events can be recorded and later replayed in the environment. According to this theory, intense emotional or psychic energy, such as fear, grief, or rage, released during significant events, can become imprinted on the surrounding environments, particularly in porous natural materials like limestone, granite, or quartz. These materials are thought to function like magnetic tape, storing impressions of sounds, movements, or atmospheres, and when specific environmental or psychological triggers align, such as changes in humidity, electromagnetic fields, or even the state of mind of a receptive observer, the recorded energy may be played back, resulting in what people perceive as ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, or residual hauntings. The theory is not new. It was first proposed in the 19th century by intellects and psychic researchers such as Charles Babbage, Eleanor Sidgwick, and Edmund Gurney, who sought natural explanations for supernatural phenomena. However, in recent times, it gained popularity with the 1972 BBC film The Stone Tape. If the theory holds true, it could explain why locations where murders, horrific deaths, or unexplained events have occurred, such as battlefields, hospitals, or houses where murders took place, tend to be perceived as haunted. These hauntings are thought to be memories of what happened, rather than the spirits of the deceased. Additionally, the theory might explain why some individuals are more sensitive to paranormal activity than others. Maybe their state of mind is more attuned to experiencing it. Now, it's worth pointing out that despite its captivating narrative, the stone tape theory remains speculative. There is currently no scientific evidence to support the idea that stones or other physical media can record or transmit sensory experiences or emotions, as the theory suggests, and geological and physical studies have not identified any mechanism by which such recordings could occur or be replayed in the presence of human observers. However, I think we'll all agree that the stone tape theory is interesting and does align with known hauntings from past traumatic events. The teenage vampire. It's hard to believe that a child's ambition when they grow up is to be a vampire. But for Matthew Hardman, that is exactly what he wanted to be. And as he entered his teenage years, becoming a real-life vampire became a deadly obsession. Matthew lived in a sleepy village on the island of Anglesey in North Wales, and outwardly he seemed like a normal kid. He lost his father when he was young, but those that knew him said it did not seem to affect him growing up, and he lived happily with his mother, who was a nurse. At school, Matthew was diligent and well-behaved, despite being dyslexic, and when he left school, he started college in Bangor. He had plenty of friends and did normal teenage things like play video games, listen to music, and go out with his mates. But unbeknown to anyone, Matthew had developed a fixation on vampires, to the point where he became convinced that the creatures existed. His overriding thoughts were, how do I become a vampire, and how do I become immortal? Matthew decided that he needed to sacrifice another human to find out. The only person who had an inkling about his fixation was Matthew's teenage girlfriend, a German exchange student, although at the time she had no idea just how far he was prepared to take his obsession. She recalls how Matthew described the area they lived in as a perfect stalking ground for vampires, because as he put it, the locals were so old that people wouldn't be suspicious if they died. He also tried to convince her that she was a vampire and begged her to bite him, sometimes shoving his neck into her mouth and screaming at her to sink her teeth into him. However, although she was alarmed by his vampire obsession and thought it had gone beyond a joke, she had no idea how seriously he took it. But Matthew was deadly serious about vampires being real, and he was determined to initiate himself into their secret community and put a plan in place to fulfill his bizarre notion. His target was 90-year-old Mabel Lyshon, a widow who lived a few doors from his home and who he knew, as he used to be her paperboy. Matthew meticulously planned what he was going to do. On the evening of November 24, 2001, Matthew broke into Mabel's bungalow as she sat watching television in her living room. He crept up behind her and launched a sustained and brutal knife attack on the old lady, stabbing her 22 times. But killing her was just the first step in his ritual sacrifice. Once Mabel was dead, he proceeded to drain some of her blood into a saucepan from her kitchen. He drank some of this blood, and then crudely cut her heart out of her chest and placed it on a saucepan on a silver platter. Matthew then positioned 2 brass pokers at Mabel's feet in the shape of a crucifix, and placed a candlestick on the floor close to her body, balancing a red candle on the mantelpiece before leaving the house. The next morning, Mabel's horrified carer discovered the grotesque scene when she called around with Mabel's Sunday lunch. Shocked, police officers immediately launched a manhunt, and one police officer told journalists, "The devil has been to Anglesey." Little did they know that the devil was the unassuming local boy who had lived down the road. Matthew Hardman was soon implicated by a wealth of evidence, including DNA he left at the scene, and Mabel's blood traces on the knife, which he had kept in his bedroom. He was sentenced to life in prison, and to date he is still incarcerated. The motive for the horrific crime was Matthew's irresistible attraction to the mythology of vampirism and the search for immortality. It goes to show, you never truly know what's going on inside someone's head. For everyone who knew Matthew, he was an outwardly normal kid, but on the inside, he festered a grotesque obsession, which makes this case the stuff of nightmares. Bigfoot spotted in Washington. This video was posted on Twitter around January 2020, as well as the Billingham Herald website. It has since been uploaded and discussed on various Reddit threads and paranormal forums. At first glance, the video seems obscure, almost fake, due to the contrast of black and white and the movement of the figure seen on the right-hand side. However, many believe that this is in fact video evidence of a Sasquatch. The video was captured at Sherman Pass on the I-90 wildlife overcrossing in Washington state. The area itself is mountainous and heavily wooded and includes the unincorporated community of Hayek. The last population census carried out showed that only 311 people lived in the region. Due to its elevation, the area experiences significantly lower temperatures, receiving much more precipitation and snow. Humid continental climate means that the winters are extremely cold, wet and snowy, while summers are warm and relatively dry each year. The area is a hotspot for snowmobiling, paragliders and hang gliders, especially along the ridge and landing at Lake Keechalas. It also appears to be a stomping ground for one of the most sought-after entities, a Sasquatch. The video appears to show Bigfoot walking along the summit of one of the mountains. However, many have debunked the footage, suggesting that the height, arm length and movements of the figure are that of a human and not an animal. Others question why a camera is perfectly positioned in the region in the first place. Now it's worth pointing out, and worthy of consideration, that the Transportation Department's Twitter account for the area shared the video, stating that they think Bigfoot is making the rounds across the mountain. Officials were even advising drivers to keep watch for Bigfoot. Even once the sun comes up, keep the headlights on for visibility, watch for Bigfoot along the areas of standing water, and get excited because the weekend is here, the Twitter account posted. So what do you think? Is it a joke, or could this be the evidence we are looking for? There's no denying that a huge portion of the population believe in Bigfoot. The question is, do you? The Jamison family CCTV. The Jamison family, Bobby, his wife Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter, Madison Stormy Star, lived in Eufaula, Oklahoma. Their disappearance in October 2009 and the subsequent discovery of their remains years later is one of the most haunting and perplexing mysteries in modern American true crime history. In the months leading up to their disappearance, Bobby and Sherilyn were reportedly under significant emotional and financial strain. Bobby had been injured in a car accident and was receiving disability benefits, while Sherilyn struggled with bipolar disorder and had reportedly stopped taking her medication. Their marriage was also troubled, with friends of the couple later describing their relationship as turbulent, though they were deeply devoted to their daughter Madison. The family was known to be reclusive, spending most of their time together and rarely interacting with others. On October 8, 2009, the Jamisons drove into the remote San Boys Mountain near Red Oak, Oklahoma, in their white pickup truck. They were reportedly scouting land to purchase with the intention of moving there to start a new life in the woods. A friend who had previously accompanied them on such trips mentioned that Bobby had been carrying a briefcase full of cash, though the reasons for this were unknown. The Jamisons were last seen alive that day, captured on security cameras mounted on their home. Surveillance footage showed the couple making repeated, silent trips between their house and the truck, loading belongings with eerily expressionless faces. Take a look. Investigators described the footage as strange, noting that the pair appeared trance-like, as if in a daze or under the influence of something. 8 days later, on October 16th, hunters found the family's abandoned truck on a rough mountain track. Inside were wallets, phones, maps, a GPS system, and a small bank bag, with $32,000 in cash. Madison's dog Maisie was alive but starving. There were no signs of a struggle. The family's coats and shoes were still in the truck, suggesting that they hadn't planned to be away for long. The discovery sparked a massive search involving hundreds of officers, rescue teams, cadaver dogs, and helicopters. Over 30 square miles were combed, but no trace of the Jamisons were found. Theories abounded. They might have gotten lost and died of exposure, or been murdered. Suspicion briefly fell on Bobby's estranged father, Bob Dean Jamison, who had threatened them, but he was in poor health and died later that year. No evidence linked him to the case. Some locals suspected drugs after meth residue was found in the family's home, though there was no proof the couple used or sold it. Others pointed to spiritual beliefs. The Jamisons thought that their house was haunted. Sherilyn reportedly wrote messages to ward off dark spirits, and Bobby told a pastor that ghosts lived in their home, adding a chilling psychological twist. The case then went cold until November 16, 2013, when hunters discovered skeletal remains about 3 miles from the truck. Forensic testing confirmed they were Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison. The bodies lay close together, face down, with no clothing or personal items nearby, and the cause of death could not be determined. Speculation continued. Was it murder-suicide, foul play, or accidental death from hypothermia? No weapons or clear evidence ever emerged. The large sum of cash, eerie footage, and bizarre behavior has kept this case shrouded in mystery, and to this day, the Jamison family deaths remain unsolved. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow for another video.